gonna spray the outside of the GTX. We've got everything prepped and ready to go. So we've done the engine bay, the inside, trunk. Now we're getting ready to finish the rest of the car up. Gonna do jams and exterior today, and then this will go back on its wheels for the last time. It's kind of a process to tape a car that's done in the engine bay, the inside, the bottom. So basically we more or less double bagged this. We bagged it once, gumming up around the bottom from the rockers to the rockers, and then up forward to the front, and then the same thing on the top to do the window openings, the door openings, cover the engine bay, things like that. So we finally got that all wrapped up, and now Brad and Ryan are wiping it down with some water-based cleaner, followed by some wax and grease, and we're gonna get some paint on this thing. I'm gonna start with sealer. We're using epoxy as a sealer, as DPLV 50. We're gonna use this as a sealer. There's lots of reasons to use epoxy versus a urethane sealer. You get a lot less shrinkage with an epoxy. In the videos before, you could probably see there's a couple little tiny burn throughs. If we were using a urethane sealer, we'd have to reprime that. But being this is an epoxy primer, this is the safest way to go over any little burn throughs from sanding your primer and things like that. So just a better overall. There's lots of reasons to use it, lots of reasons in some cases not to use it. So today we're going to use DPLV 50. Today is the day. This thing's finally ready to paint. We've been working on this over a year now. Today we're gonna get it in the booth, do some candy base coat. Ryan's blowing it all out right now, getting all the dust out of it, out from in it, under it, blowing all the nooks and crannies out. As you can see, that's the color. This is a candy base coat. So basically it's a candy. We're putting this blue mixture of pearls over black. But being this is a candy, we painted the jams, the engine bay, all that, and then now that it's all together, we're gonna paint the outside separately. Got the Chevelle back in the hole, as we call it. We've got the car in epoxy and metalwork is done. We had to do fairly extensive metalwork to make the gaps right and make everything fit, but we got her all on there. Panel to panel is pretty good, as you can see. We've set it all up, we've bent the edges out, and everything lines up pretty well. So right now we're getting ready to start blocking on this. We start filler work. So this car's been stripped. It has DPLV 50 and then CRE 921 on top of that. So when we start burning through the CRE, we will see the gray of the DP50 before we hit bare metal. DP50 down. We're gonna give this about an hour. Come in, start putting our red base down. After we get red base down, anywhere that we see any dirt, we're gonna come in and sand that with some 600, just lightly de-nib it. And then we're gonna keep going with color. We're gonna do 3 coats. We've got the car in the booth. We've got it masked up, wiped down. Wiped this down with, we wiped this car down 3 times. We wiped it once with water, H2O So Clean, and then we wiped it twice with DX330. all masked up, ready to go. We're gonna spray some DPLV 90 on this as a sealer. We're gonna do some stripes, maybe some lettering. This is a custom tri-coat candy base coat, which we're gonna treat like a candy, which is why we have the car together. We have the hood over here that is off the car, which I'm confident I can match that being off the car, but the reason that we did that is we have to paint the jambs of the fenders blue. Now, being that we molded this all in as one, we jammed this front clip. The backside is semi-gloss black, and then we put it on the car because we knew we were going to be painting the car together because of the color. So we're going to start with a black sealer, and then I'm actually going to go to a silver base, only where I'm going to put my silver stripes. So usually we would start with a gray sealer for silver, but being that the ground coat of the main color of the car is black, I'm going to seal it with a black sealer. We're going to come in, we'll probably do 3 or 4 coats of silver on the areas that we need to be silver, and then we will go ahead and mask those areas, and then we'll go to our black base, and then onto our candy. And yes, I did not mask this mirror because it is broken. We're going to be changing that once the car is painted. So nobody freak out or anything. So right now we're going to put down the first coat of Deltron BBC R6 Forged Red. So as you can see, we started blocking this, got a bit of a map. Obviously our panel to panel areas are the worst. You know, we've got, this is low, it's a little low over here, it's low, it's low. Most of this and this whole door is gonna end up getting skimmed. As you can see, there's a big low right here. It's dense, sporadic, little dings and dents sporadically spread throughout the door. We're gonna do a repair. We don't do a lot of repairs here. Most of the stuff we do is, you know, full cars, full paint jobs, but this is a 29 Dodge, and it's a local guy in the local car club. He built this car, I don't know, a couple years ago or so, and he actually just put a different motor in it, had a 440. Now it's got the little Hemi in it, so kind of looks more the part for this type of a build. He's got the front end off of it still from doing the motor swap there. But what our concern with this car is back here, there's some paint that's coming off, and this is, I guess, a prime example of why we don't put filler over bare metal. He ground this out a little bit before he brought it to us, but as you can see, there's rust coming from way down in here. You can see under the filler, it's rust. I'm gonna have to grind this out a little farther and get rid of this rust, but this rust is, you know, probably because there's all this filler right on top of bare metal. There was no epoxy, so that's what we're fixing, and we're gonna try to keep it on this side of the seam sealer, because this side is there's really nothing wrong with this. So what we're going to try to do is keep it on this side of that seam sealer and just paint this rear panel. So first things first, being that this car is a finished car, I don't want to get dust and everything all over this car, especially on this top. So I'm gonna plastic this whole car off, and we're just gonna mask the area that we're gonna repair so that we can work on that. So as you can see, we had a bit of a dilemma. The prepper didn't blow this out good enough, and I think I have a bunch of dirt here that we've been sanding out, and I think it came out of this groove right here and these holes in the hatch. I think that's where it all came out of, because it's only back here and it's only for a little bit onto the quarter. So I'm thinking stuff blew out of here, and the way the booth flows, it pulls it forward. So I think that's what happened. So I'm gonna finish sanding this out, but before I do that, I turn the booth back on. Now, since I was sanding here, and I think there might be stuff down in here yet, I'm gonna lightly blow everything off, almost like I'm painting. Like I'm gonna take this blowgun and go over the whole car like I'm spraying, in hopes of blowing any other crap that we have down in there out before I go to the next step. But I got a little bit more sanding to do. I'm gonna give it a little blow, tack it off, do some more sanding, blow it, repeat this process a couple times as I do this, and then we'll be ready to go on to our silver. The front half of the car is actually pretty clean. I didn't even sand on anything up there. The hood and the spoiler, everything is super clean. So I think our issue was with these holes in the hatch, and maybe this area, those holes in the bumper, things like that, because the top of the bumper was the same way. The hatch and the bumper, not a fun time. So now we've got one coat of our DBC down. What I'm gonna do is give this about 30 minutes. We're gonna come in and do a little bit of denibbing. So what we're gonna do now, we've let this dry about 30 minutes after our first coat of base, and we're looking for things like that right there, that little nib. We're gonna come in and just lightly hit that with some 600. This is 600 dry sandpaper. We're gonna go in one direction, and this is nearly critical. When you're sanding soft base, you don't want to sit here and rub it like this. A lot of times it'll rip. So now that I've got my 3 coats of base down, shut the lights off in here, and I've got my sun gun here. We're gonna look all over the nooks and crannies, make sure we've got color everywhere up inside of these. Actually, I got all that pretty good. I'm sure I'll find something where there's no color. Up in this pocket right there, you can see it's not quite covered. That's what we're looking for right now. You can see all this a lot better with the lights off than you can with the lights on. When you have one light concentrated on what you're looking at, any areas that aren't covered, you'll see a lot better. Like if I look up in these taillight pockets, this stuff all looks pretty good. There's a little bit right in here that's not quite covered. I need to get some paint in there. We're looking for stuff like this up under this edge where there's no coverage right up in there. We're going to come in with the gun and touch all these little areas up with the lights off, with the sun gun looking at it. And after we do that, we'll be on to clear. stripe laid out. This, when we're doing stripes like this on both sides, generally we just kind of freehand the first side and try to match it the best we can to the other side, which isn't always that easy, but basically what we did is we went off of our C28 decal here, which we're just using as a stencil, but everything under this is going to stay silver, obviously, but we went stripe just a little wider than that, come back, nice swoop. These cars kind of have a swoop right here, so this stripe kind of comes down, comes back up, and then it lines up with the door handle opening, which is smaller than the factory opening. We took 1.5 inches out of these, so these are a lot sleeker, but lines right up with that, and then the heartbeat lines up at the bottom of the stripe, and then on the bottom of the door we did the heartbeat with the logo. So that's all going to stay silver. This is probably the coolest part of this, and it's the easiest. So Brad cut these out on vinyl cutter, and we're just going to follow our bottom line on that stripe, and we're going to line it up with the bottom of the door handle there. Stick that on there real nice, and then this is going to become the rest of our strip. Lightly peel this off. And when you're pulling this, you always want to pull it at a 90-degree angle. If you pull it like this, good chance it's going to come up on you. So you always want to pull it as sideways as possible. It usually comes off pretty flawlessly, just like that. So same thing in the front. We're going to take our C28. Peel our backing off. Center it right in the brake. Oh, that's gonna look nice. This is an aftermarket quarter on this car, and in this groove, this line flows real good until right here, and then it really V's, and so that's gonna have to all get addressed all the way down this quarter. A few little dings along here, probably from when they put the quarter on. We didn't put the quarters on this car, but I would say they were put on fairly well as far as the quality of the way they were put on. And going into that, up here, this is when we stripped this car, this is what we found, and we left it because this is the way we would have done it too. They spot welded this quarter on, and then they welded the seam solid to the roof, and that's the best way to do this to prevent cracking. Some people would put lead in here. We don't like to use lead. Lead is big problems usually. Almost every time I've stripped lead, I've found rust underneath of it. So what we do is we weld it solid like this, we get it in epoxy, we prep this, and then we use Duraglass fiberglass filler over this. So right now we're getting ready to mix up some Platinum Select. This is 3M Platinum Select. This is the filler that we like to use. Platinum Plus is pretty good filler too. This stuff spreads a little better. It seems to sand a little better. So when we do this, we're mixing 50 to 1, 2% harder. So 0 the scale. I'm gonna mix to do what I am gonna do there. I'm gonna mix probably maybe 200 grams. And if you're 0.1 off, like I'm at 199.8, probably close enough for filler. So I'm gonna call that 200. We're gonna 0 that. So for every 50 grams, we put 1 gram. So 200 grams, we're gonna put 4 grams of hardener in this. So 4 grams of hardener, and I've got a little bit of a spreadsheet right here to kind of guide you guys through that. So just a few different mix options there. So when I mix this filler, I'm kneading it like dough. I'm not stirring it, I'm kneading it back and forth, kind of folding it over itself, trying to work those air pockets out of it so that you have less pinholes, even though you will always have pinholes in filler. I don't care if it says it's the world's first pinhole-free filler. So right now I've got 2 coats of VC 5700 down. It's coming out pretty clean, but I want to talk about flash times a little bit. So when we stack more than 2 coats of clear, we need to modify and adjust flash times. So I did 1 coat, I gave it 15 minutes, came in, give it another coat. Now I'm going to give it 25 minutes before the 3rd coat. After I lay the 3rd coat, I'm going to give it 35 to 40 minutes before I lay the 4th coat. And if I was doing 5 coats on this car, I would give it roughly an hour between 4th and 5th coats. Ready to spray our candy base coat. So now the car's black. What I'm going to do, I've turned my pressure up a little bit. I'm spraying about 25 psi, but I'm going to move fast, and I have to walk this whole car from front to back, and I have to be very cautious about how I spray things. If I spray the top of this fender this way, when I spray the hood, I need to make sure I do it in the same way, same air pressure, same, just very robotic. Very repetitive. Last time before we clear. We're pretty satisfied with the way everything looks, so we're going to go on. We're going to spray some 5700 on this. We're going to do 4 coats of VC 5700.
The studs off that hold the plastic clips that hold the trim on to do the body work, and then we're going to go with a stud style clip and bolt it from the inside.
Well, we're getting ready to pull the motor out. We mocked up our headers. We had to make a set. Made a cold air intake, put it in the fender well. We're getting ready to pull everything apart so we can start doing metal work.
Tyler and John went to Hastings, Nebraska, down to Imperial Wheeling Machines for a 4-day intensive metal shaping class. They learned a lot down there as far as making metal do what we want it to do.
We've been blocking on this. I've been kind of back and forth. I've maybe got, I don't know, 15 hours or so in my side here, and my side is basically ready to go to 150 except for a couple minor areas. But got about 15 hours on this side. So we've been doing panel to panel on this car. As you can see when you look down the side, it's gonna be very nice. I'm pretty excited about this one. This is gonna be black. It's been a couple years since I've done a black car, and I really like super straight black. It really gives us a good chance to show what the blocks will do and what we can do here. So now we're gonna get ready to put this in the booth. I've got everything prepped, the seam sealer's done, all that's ready, everything's ready to go. What we like to do is we always bring them outside, blow the whole car off, blow everything out, and just try to get any of the loose dust that's on it off of it before it goes into the booth. 5-hour marathon now. We started 6 a.m. yesterday. We started just final prepping it, looking over our edges, scuffing the last little bits of things. Took it outside, blew it off, got it in here, masked it, sealed it, basted, stripes, candy, everything. It's taken us about 25 hours, more or less non-stop, other than, you know, waiting for flash times and things like that. So right now I've got some DP50 in the gun. We're gonna go ahead and seal this. I've tacked this off already. Make sure all my tape is stuck down good. Just like that. So now I've got one coat of base down, and you can kind of see that sealer through it a little bit. Up through here, you can kind of see that's darker, this is lighter, this isn't covered yet. But now, when I do my second coat, I'm gonna bring my second coat out to about there. When I do my third coat, I'm gonna bring it out even farther, and I'm gonna fan it out, blend that as I do this. So now I shut the lights off in the booth, and I take a sun gun light, and we look at our blend. You can see that metallic, you can see how it's laid out nice. If you look down this, you can actually kind of see where I stopped blending. Kind of gets a little bit of a dry edge, but we're not real concerned with that right now. We're not looking at the shine or the sheen, we're looking at the color itself. So, as you can see, I think I've got a pretty good blend going. I'm gonna go on to clear. So there we go, we have our repair done. We've got 3 coats of VC 5700 on this. So now, those areas that I did the fine line tape, I'm actually going to come in while this clear is still wet and carefully pull that off of there. And that is going to allow this line right here to kind of lay down a little bit. And then after we're going to let this sit for a couple days, bake it with the light, and then when we do our cut and buff on this, there's a little bit of dirt in there. It's not too bad. It's pretty clean. There's a couple little pieces of dirt. So we're gonna cut and buff this either way. But when we do that, after we're done cutting and buffing and that, we're gonna do what we call a buff blend, because this is gonna be a lot shinier than the car that's been done for 3 years and probably not polished for a while. So this is gonna look a lot better than this, no matter what, and you can actually kind of see that right there. You can see how dull the color that I just unmasked looks next to the fresh clear. So we'll end up doing a buff blend and polishing, you know, probably down towards the body line and the top of the boot lid and things like that. So we're gonna give this a few days and then cut and buff. So what I've got here is an LS400 NTEC Iwata. I like using this gun. Even though this is technically a base gun, it sprays 5700 and the clears that we use, it sprays really well, and I really like it actually for solid colors and sealer mostly. If I have a metallic base, I'll probably go to the LPH, but this is the gun that I like for solid colors, clears, things like that. So what I'm gonna do is put DP90 down as a sealer, and then immediately after that I'm gonna shut the lights off, come in, check my edges, corners, things like that, make sure everything's covered. We're gonna give it about an hour, and then we're gonna put some DC 8115 flat clear on it. And there we have it. 8115 flat clear. I like to unmask this shortly after I spray it, once it's dust free and I can touch it lightly. I like to unmask it just because a lot of times if you're doing a stripe or something, cutting a line between flat and gloss, you're going to have a line, and if you can unmask it, the sooner the better. It'll kind of lay down a little bit. It won't be such a aggressive line. So right now we're going to get our new bullet for the Camaro, for the 94 Camaro, the one with the CTS dash and that. We're gonna put a Turbo LS in it. So we're here with Trevor. He's got this LS1 with the turbo on it, and we're here to pick this up. This came out of a 67 Camaro that he had, and he ran that around for a little while and decided to go a different route. So this is gonna be a good heart transplant for the LT, replace the LT, kind of go along with all the modern stuff we're putting in it. You said you took this out of a Camaro?
Yeah, I bought a 67 Camaro this last summer. When I bought it, it was running but not roadworthy, so I spent the summer getting it up to speed so I could burn it around a little bit, put a couple 100 miles on, and then heading into the winter, figured out what I wanted for my build and pulled this out and swapping in a LS3 crate motor with a Tremec TKX 5-speed and building it to be a little bit more of a drivable streetcar resto mod.
There we go. Got her all loaded up. Time for some 243 heads and a boost cam. Tonight we're back working on the 94 Camaro with the Cadillac dash. We've got the dash pretty well situated. We're gonna end up getting rid of all these buttons. We're gonna put an iPad in here and ditch the double din. Smooth that all out, put an iPad in there. And tonight we pulled the motor out. The old LT1 is no more. Started welding some things on the firewall. Started making the panels for that. And we're gonna chop the roof up here. We're gonna do a T-top conversion on this roof. We've got a couple T-top cars around here to look at, but for the most part, the structure on a T-top, this lip right here is actually where the rubber weather strip sits. We've got a parts car that we're gonna rob weather strips and T-top glass and fill panels and things off of. But more or less, we're gonna start by cutting this section right out of the roof. Cut that section right out, and by the time we're done, we may end up re-skinning the roof using the T-top skin, because when we cut this, right in this region, when we cut this skin is just gonna be a thin edge all the way across where the T-top has a nice rolled, it fills it in. So we'll see how that looks. We may end up re-skinning this roof. Worked on the gauges a little bit ago. I got the speedometer, the fuel gauge, and the temp gauge mounted in there. I gotta make some fill panels so that you don't see that white. That white is actually the original housing cluster from the CTS. I mounted some gauges in that, and now I gotta figure out something to make that look nice. Maybe some carbon fiber panel in there or something. So here's the old baby that was in there. This was a LT1, good heads, cam, naturally aspirated. And this is what we're gonna put in there. Turbo LS1, single 76mm Turbonetics turbo. Should be a good time. So if you look down in these pillars, even the hard tops actually have the slots for the bolts for the latch for the T-tops, front and back. See them back in there? So basically what has to happen now is we need to take this outer layer off right here. This needs to come off, and then that'll give us access and set our depth right here for the T-top. So for this, what I like to do is take a black marker, mark my spot welds on the front. I've actually only got 2. But then the belt sanders, this is an Astro, the 3M ones, whichever, the 3M belts work great. You just grind the spot weld right off. So on this car, which is a factory T-top car, you can see how that skin rolls down and comes in. That I would like, but I may be able to just run a nice little rubber bead in there or something. We'll have to see how this goes. But according to this one, it comes straight up off the roof line, and from this roof line to the peak of this is 1 5/8 inches. So then out here, this whole curve follows this curve. This is swooped as it comes in, and this whole curve needs to get cut off down to 1 5/8 inches from here to here. So I need to gently cut this off very carefully and try to maintain that nice little swoop in there. And then we're gonna go to cutting our first cut and cut the roof skin off. Then we're gonna have to come up here with the windshield removal tool and cut the roof skin. Is glued on. I have to cut all that glue, get the rest of the roof skin off, and then we can start focusing on our T-tops and our structure, getting everything to bolt in. So now I've got my 1 5/8 inches pretty well established. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make my first cut across the roof, and I'm leaving some room. I'm going a little farther forward than I think I really need to in the end. Can always take more off. Really hard to add it back to it because it is sheet molded compound SMC fiberglass and it's very thin. If you had to add to this edge, it probably wouldn't really work. We've got the roof skin cut off, so now our brackets will bolt right in here. Our rubber will sit up here. We're actually gonna have to bend this up to match this, so the rubber follows this, like on the other cars, and same in the back. The T-top bracket will bolt right in there. We'll have to close this off, make this look better. But same thing, basically this is gonna, that rubber comes through here, screws in there, down we go. So this is the donor car. This is a 98 RS with a 3.8. So we had to cut some of the panels out. Some of the stuff is different from T-top to hardtop. On a hardtop, this area you don't see. So they had kind of some big gaps and things like that that the skin covers on a hardtop that you will see with the T-top. So we had to cut this section out to bring our weather strip flange all the way out to the end, and et cetera, et cetera. So right now we're working on getting the skin off of here, and we're using the windshield urethane cutting tool, trying to get the blade up in there, get this cut off nicely as possible. So this is our donor roof skin off of the 3.8 car. The only reason that we're using this is because of this nice little roll. The T-top actually sits right in here like this, and then on the inside there's a finished lip that I would like to have, which this car does not have. We've got this T-top kind of sitting in there, but as you can see, no finished lip on this side. So we're just gonna go ahead and use the T-top roof skin. It's gonna make it a better job and easier in the long run. So then on the inside here, I've got my latch in place, my pin from the T-top lines up with the front and the back. So as far as actually, I'll say fitting the T-top on this side, we're basically done. The only other thing that we need to do to make sure that this is all right is we need to put the windshield on, lay the windshield in there, make sure it fits good, and then we're going to put the T-top roof on, or the T-top roof skin. So then in this area of the roof structure, we had to modify quite a bit. We had to take a layer off. This used to come up and actually meet with the skin on this side. So we cut this, push this down. I've got to weld this together. And then I had to actually grind this lip all the way back behind the skin there, so that when this all goes together, that has room to go under the skin. The hole lines up here, goes roughly something like that when it's together, and then this rubber slides onto there. Same thing on this side. That's one of the reasons that we used this piece off of the other car, is to make this rubber fit. And as you can see, that rubber fits over that little body line right there. That all fits real nice. But when I take this off, I had to use this piece and then slice this piece and roll that up into this, because this corner is all, I'll say, closed on the T-top roof. This corner is all closed. I've got a little bit of welding to do. I've got to weld this together here, but for the most part, we know the T-tops fit. Everything seems to be in the right spot. I just need to do a little welding on this side yet, and then once I do this on that side, we'll go ahead and put the roof skin on, make sure it lines up with the T-tops before we glue the skin back in place. So this side I haven't really messed with much yet, but as you, like I was talking on that side, how that came up, I'm gonna have to cut this all out, cut this entire piece here needs to leave, because on the T-top roof, this just continues down into here. This doesn't need to be here. That rubber actually is gonna sit roughly right in the way of that, so we need to delete all of that. And this is why we use this corner section on the windshield right here, this big gap and all this. Sure, you could make it work, you could bend this up if you didn't have a donor car, but we do have a donor car, so we're going to cut this off just like we did on the other side. We're going to section this corner of the windshield post / roof into place. And by the time we're done, you'll never know that this wasn't a T-top car. So now I'm onto the passenger side, and I've got my old structure skin cut off of here, and the T-top one is gonna go on just like so. Fits real nice on there. So that's gonna go in there. If you notice on the back of this, I sprayed weld through primer everywhere we're gonna be doing any spot welds. I'm gonna do the same on the body. I'm gonna cover this all up with weld through primer, because we will never see it again, and we wanna make sure that we cover that bare metal that's in there before we weld it on. And this, they call it a weld through primer, because what this is gonna do is, as I weld my spot welds, this is gonna melt and encapsulate the weld, is the idea with this weld through primer. So there we go. I've got my front piece in there, all welded in. I've got the back pretty well modified. I got some welding to do here, but we're gonna make sure everything fits before we weld all that back up. So at this point, I'm gonna take the middle rail out. We're gonna cut the hardtop roof skin off, start putting our T-top roof skin on, put the glass in, put the latches in, make sure everything fits, and from there I'll finish welding this stuff up, and T-top conversion will basically be done. We gotta glue the T-top roof skin on, finish welding this, we're basically done here as long as everything fits good. So there it is, we've got the T-tops on. All we've got left to do is glue the T-top roof skin in. I would say everything fits nicely. We are looking good. T-top from a hard top to a T-top, just like that. This took probably
maybe 10 hours worth of time. Started on it last night, worked on it a couple hours. Started on it about 8 o'clock today, and it's about 2 now. So obviously we have a lot of work left on this car in general. This is all got to get stripped. Whoever did the body work on that did not do a very good job. So I've got a little bit of fitting this around the back window to do before, kind of as we glue this in. I have to make sure everything fits good, but not real worried. I think it should be totally doable. We got interior trims to fit. The A-pillars are kind of cut in half. We use the CTS front section of the A-pillar molded into the Camaro. And then I decided we need a T-top, so now I'm gonna have to mold the rear section that covers the latch into the pillar molding. But that's all in time. That's all as we get rolling on this a little more. For now, we've got T-tops on. The body construction is done. On to the next thing.